In mid-January 1996, the Royal Hudson was contracted by Kodak to film a short clip as part of their Super Bowl advertising for that year. The Royal Hudson made an epic journey to Lillooet for what would end up being less than 5 seconds on the big screen. Here are some scenes from that trip. On the 16th of January, 2860 set out for Lillooet. In this first scene, the sun is not up by the time they were nearing Squamish, and 2860 streaks through the shadows, passing the logging crossing at mile 37.9 of BC Rail's Squamish subdivision. On arrival at Squamish, the 2860 backs down to her summer watering spot for a drink. The crew on this trip was engineer Eric Bishop, fireman Joe Mazer, conductor Clyde Mulhall, and trainmen Roy Croston and Olin Ford. After a few minutes taking water at Squamish, the train was off again. This time we see 2860 speeding along the straight track through Brackendale. There were a bunch of us chasing the train this day, and everyone was trying to get a good spot, which was a challenge. We knew there was going to be snow, and some went further than others to get the shots. At the top of the Chekamiss Canyon, we were all perched like eagles on top of rocks to get our own angles for the run. Here we are further up at the top of the canyon at mile 56.9. The train is going slow here as there was no diesel assisting the 2860. Keeping up was easy on this part of the trip. Here we have 3 scenes of 2860 rounding one of the many rock bluffs beside the Chekamiss River south of Garibaldi, BC. 2860 climbs through Garibaldi siding. One of the steepest parts of the grade north of Squamish is at Daisy Lake, a challenge for any operating crew. The locomotive is working at its hardest here. This is just north of McGuire on the way into Whistler. Just south of Whistler, the Alta Lake Road goes over the west side of the community and offers many good photo opportunities. At the south crossing, we see 2860 struggling again on the steep section of track. It was hard to stop clicking the shutter and advancing the film, one eye looking through the viewfinder and the other eye firmly fixed on what was happening. Could I really be seeing this? This was truly amazing to watch. After the dramatic grind up the hill, the track is flat through Whistler. Here we see 2860 streaking through the siding at Mons at mile 78. In the old days, there was so much snow here, the section crew would just dig a tunnel from the tracks to the station and turn the Mons station sign upside down, which would spell snow. North of Whistler, we see 2860 crossing the Green River Bridge. Now it is downhill all the way to Pemberton. Here we see 2860 about to cross over the Green River Highway crossing and soon to cross over the Sioux River Bridge. Just south of Pemberton, we all dove into a snowbank right beside the highway to get these shots just north of the highway crossing at mile 93. We arrived in Pemberton as it was getting dark, and the train is sitting on the main line with the Pemberton pushers sitting beside them on the pass. Everyone else went home after seeing the train at Pemberton, and I took the chance to get one last shot. Here we see 2860 racing through the straight siding at Creekside at mile 107. I went home myself after this, after having a great day of chasing the train. I spent the next several days asking everyone I could find on the railway if they knew when the train was coming back. On the morning of January 18th, I went to the station and Tom King informed me that the train had left Lillooet, and if I hurried I could catch it at Pemberton. I had all my gear in the truck, so it was off to Pemberton. I was also working at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I had limited chances to get photos. I called a few friends to let them know, but the timing was too quick for most, and I ended up being the only one photographing the return trip. I raced to Pemberton only to find the train sitting there waiting for me. The temperature was minus 15 and everything looked like it was frozen solid. The next series of photos are all taken at Pemberton. The Pemberton pushers are waiting to go on their next trip north to Darcy to pick up the next southbound train. The pushers had left northbound, and in a few minutes it was time for the Hudson to go. With this much snow, there are very few places to safely get off the road to park, and I went to the most open place up the hill and waited for the train. I could hear the 2860 grinding up the hill, and the next 3 shots are going by the mile 93.8. Again, another spot where I could not stop taking photos. Such a sight to see. Here we see the 2860 crossing the highway at mile 91.2. And further up the hill at Tisdale Siding. And here the 2860 is traveling along the east side of Green Lake between Parkhurst and Mons. My last shot of the day is at the old highway crossing at Whistler. It is about 2 in the afternoon, and this ends my day as I have to be back in Squamish to work at 3. It was an amazing 2 days of taking photos. A big thank you to the operations people at the old BC Rail for letting a once-in-a-lifetime trip like this happen.